This is Jesse Crudup, and welcome to my storybook. Today, the part 3 of this story called Dog Whisper, The Rescue. Yesterday, I have read part, part 2. I have read chapter 3 and chapter 4 of this book. Now today, part 3 on this, The Rescue. I'll be reading chapter 5 and chapter 6 in this book. Number 5. I'll be right back, she said. I promise. Will it be okay to leave him for a few minutes? With more big waves came in, and the curtain pulling him off the rocks. But there was no way she could rescue him by herself. He was just too big for her to lift. She pulled off her hood and carefully covered him with it. It might not have much, but maybe it would keep him a little warmer while she went back to the house. Stay, she said. Good dog, stay. She scrambled over the rocks, through the bushes, across the lawn, and up onto the deck. Then she yanked the back door open and went upstairs to her parents' bedroom. Since her mother had stayed up so late and was probably really tired, she decided to try and wake up her father instead. Besides, her mother was really small. Emily was already almost as tall as she was, so her father would have an easier time picking the dog up. Dad, she whispered. It took 3 towels, but finally he opened his eyes, looking confused. What? He asked, and blinked a few times. What is it? He wobbled one hand across his eyes. Did you have another dream? Her father looked puzzled and hesitated himself up onto one elbow. You dreaming about a dog? Emily shook her head. No, it's a real dog. Out on the walk. He need a vet. Her father glanced over her shoulder to make sure her mother was still asleep. What do you mean? He asked quietly. I don't understand. I found a dog, Emily said, but it's a really big dog, and I can't get him inside by myself. Her father must still have been half asleep because his aspirations was intentionally buffeting it. Why are you all well? It's raining, she said. Please, Dad, I need your help. That must have been the magic word, because now her mother woke up too. What's wrong? She asked sleepily. By the time Emily had explained the whole thing again, her father had put on a pair of hiking boots and put on a ball-down sweatshirt over his pajamas. You want me to come out with you? Emily's mother asked, already listening to a pair of running shoes. Her father shook his head. No, don't worry, Joanne. I'll take care of it. It'll only take a couple of minutes. Once they were outside, Emily hurried across the lawn towards the Pillarbo's house. It's pouring out here. Her father said, go in and get your jacket. She shook her head. It's okay, Dad. I'm already wet. Her father's son was either long suffering or kindly annoying. I promise I get one after, she said. Her father clearly didn't see the log of that, but he nodded and designated a long suffering way. She found a one and fairly long object on the ground, and then remembering how clumsy her father was even when, unlike, unlike now, he was wide awake. Emily turned to hail him off. Dad, don't fall over the. Her father tripped and went squirming. Too late. Kid, she said. Her mother kept her good racing car in the garage, but often left her every day at one outside, carefully protected by a thick, waterproof cover. Did I break the wobble again? He asked from the muddy ground. Boy, she sure hoped not, because her mother had been pretty mad the other two times it happened. I think it's okay, she said unsensually. Let's hope it's okay, he said. When they got to go, when they got to the Paraboys, Parabites Parabites buses, her father followed her, stumbling lightly on the rough ground. That is pretty far from the house, Emily. She had counted on being hoping that he wouldn't notice that part, since she might get in trouble for running around by herself in the middle of the storm this early in the morning. I can help him, Emily said, sort of. Josephine was acting all well and like banging at the window with her paws. Hmm, her father said, that is real. The wind was coming down harder than ever, but at least the thunderstorm seemed to be moving out to sea, because the lightning flashes were less frequently and the thunder sounded farther away. Emily started to climb underneath the bushes, but her father pulled her back. Why don't we just go up there this way? Hmm. Why don't we just go up there this way? Hmm? He's suggesting, pointing towards the Purby's driveway. Well, yeah, that makes kind of a lot of sense. Emily nodded and followed him across the lawn, up to the road, and then down the driveway. Why are you limping? Her father asked, because her knee hurt. I'm fine, Emily said, and made a point of not limping. They hurried past the bushes, her father tripping again and snapping off a few small branches and towards the rocks. When she saw the big white shell still lying there, she let out a sound of relief. See? She pointed and started making her way across the rocks. Right over there. Her father followed her, slipping several times. You didn't climb out here by yourself, did you? He asked. Evelyn had never been good at lying, and it wasn't something she did to do anyway. The dog was crying, Dad, and now that they were closer, she could hear that the dog was rumbling a little. He was on his side in the exact same spot when she had left him, his breathing lower. But when he saw her, his tail made a flutter of egg. You stay here, okay? Her father said, and stand way back in case he bites. Evelyn shook her head. He's not going to bite. Dad is a really good dog. Just stand back, please, her father said, hesitating for a second. He wasn't really comfortable about around animals, even Josephine, and then bent down to look at the dog. To her horror, Emily saw that the dog's fur wasn't just soaking from the ocean. There was blood, too, on his side, and his head and paws. Okay, her father said, sounding as sounding as though he was talking to himself. Let me just figure out how to, okay? He moved cautiously to lift the dog up, but the dog immediately leaping from pain. Emmeline swallowed her because she knew it wouldn't help if she started crying too. Can we call an ambulance? Maybe. Her father thought about that and then shook his head. No, let me try again. I'll be more careful. This time, the dog whimpered, but he also let out a loud growl. He also let out a loud growl. Hey, her father said, and jumped back out of the way. Don't come anywhere near him, okay? Hmm? I think his chest hurt a lot, Emily said, and climbed down to pat the dog's head. Good boy. It's okay, boy. Her father glared at her. What did I just tell you? Did not to what did I just tell you? Not to do exactly what she had immediately done. Dad's just trying to help you, she said to the dog. The dog's tail waved once, only lifting it a couple of inches off the rocks. Don't touch him, her father said, his voice stern. I don't want you to get bit. I don't want you to get bitten. Emily looked at the dog. He looked back at her with distance, especially dark eyes. He once said he won, she said. He was just scared. Her father forwarded at her. Emily, when I tell you to do something that's important, you need to listen to me. It didn't seem like it would be smart to argue with him. So Emily nodded and moved a few feet away. Thank you, her father said, and then shook his head. I think we should probably call the police. Maybe they can. Emily stared at him. The police, her father silent. They know how to do this sort of thing. I'm really not. Look out. They both ducked as General Ray came swooping in over the rocks, watching over all three of them. Wow, her father said, and whipped his hand across his glasses. That was a pretty big one, but not as big as the next wave, which was strong enough to knock Emily down, and her father almost toppling over too. Are you all right? Her father asked as he helped her up. Go back and wait on the glass, okay? Emily nodded and looked down at the dog, too, to make sure that he was all right. But the rocks were not empty, except for her clumber sweetheart. The dog was gone. Chapter 6. Emily and her father started staring at each other and then out, the rough water. I say it again. Emily and her father stared at each other and then out at the rough water. Her father saw him first, pointing when he located a white Harvey shape. Okay, there he is, he said. Maybe we can use a stick or borrow some rope from the Paraby's duck. That made sense, but the dog was so too exhausted to swim, and she saw his head go under. We don't have time for that, Dad, she said, and scrambling over to the edge of the rocks. Emily, her father said, don't even think of jumping into. Emily jumping into the water, and wow, it was cold, freezing, so cold that it took her breath away. As the shock ran through her whole body, she treated in the water for a few seconds to try and get her bearings, and then swam towards the dog in a fast, determined crawl. Then there was another big splash as her father took off his glasses, set them down on a rock, and then leaping her at the heart. I am not happy with you, Emily, he said, grumbling as he swan emptying in her direction. Okay, but she had started talking and taking swimming lessons when she was about 5 years old, and she was a much better swimmer than he was. Maybe she usually didn't run during the middle of diving rainstorms, but she knew how. And maybe she should have asked her mother to help with this instead, because there was a chance she was going to have to rescue her father too. The dog was nowhere in sight, and she dove on and under when she had last seen him. It took three towels. It took three tries as she floundered around with her arms. But finally, one of her hands grazed with forth. It was in too much trouble for her to worry about hurting him. She tugged it as hard as she could on his legs to pull him up to the surface. Working together, she and her father hurling him back to the rocks. The dog's body was limping, which made it easier to drag him, but she was terrified that he might be dead. They hoisted him up onto the rocks, and then her father lifted her out of the water too. "Do not," he said, confidently, "ever do that again. I was cross with you. I'm very cross with you." She was confident too much herself to be able to answer, but she nodded. In the meantime, the dog was buried across the rocks, still not moving. Her father pulled herself, her father pulled himself out of the water and then looked around blurrily. His glasses, Emily glances around until she saw them wriggling in between two rocks. "Right there," she said, and picked them up for him. It looked like the frames were kind of bent, but at least they weren't broke. Her father nodded, wiping the lines off on his red sweatshirt, and put the glasses on. Still coughing, he floated down at the dog and resting his hand against his chin as he thought for a moment. Then he nodded once, as positioning the dog's head so that it was angling down. "What are you doing?" Emily asked. "I'm going to try some CPR," her father said, and pressing firmly on his rib cage with both hands. He continued aloud to three, then pressing again and again and again with the same rhythm. Just as he bent down to breathe into the dog's mouth and nose, the dog unexpectedly choked and water gushing out of his mouth. Her father waited until he was finished, and then resumed the chest compressing. The dog vomited up some more water, and then it seems like magic as his chest started moving up and down. He was breathing on his own. Emily was so relieved that she wasn't sure whether to hug her father or the dog or both. "Wow, that was really good, Dad. That was really good." Her father just sat down on the rocks to catch his own breath. The dog lay statically on his side, but his breathing was more lumbering than ever. "Let's get him into the house," her father said. "Then we can decide what to do from there." Emily nodded. The swimming had been so surprisingly exhausted, and she was shouldering from the chilly rain. But she picked up her sweatshirt, rolling out the water as well as she could, and covered the dog with it again. The dog moved slightly in response, and then lay quietly again. "There, Emily," her mother called from down deck. "Where are you?" "Over here," her father called back. Once her mother had made her Once her mother had made her way over to them, her parents decided anxiously Her mother decided that her father would go get a couple of blankets and warm their plastic chairs. That they would ease the dog onto the shade to sleigh and then put him safely back to the house. Emily thought that sounded like a good plan and smart plan. She and her mother stayed on the walks to wait for him to come back. Emily patted the dog gently the entire time. Dad gave him CPR, she said. It was cool. Her mother looked impressed. Good for him. I don't think I know how to give CPR to a dog. Emily nodded, since she wouldn't have had any idea how to do it either, but her father had really good memory, and it was kind of the thing he must have read about on the internet once. Was the dog wearing that sweatshirt when you got here? Her mother asked. Really? Emily shook her head. No, I was trying to keep the wind from getting on him. Joke, her mother said. Right. Okay. She maybe should have figured that out on her own. I thought it would probably have been easier if she was less tired. She kept saying smooth, soothing things to the dog, and ever so often he would wag his tail a tiny bit. She knew that he probably couldn't understand her, but it seems important to try and make him feel safe. I know it hurts, but you should try not to grow again, she said. Dogs make my father a little nervous. Her mother laughed. A lot of things make your father a little nervous, which was true. Sometimes even annoying stuff like the sound of blenders made him flinch. He'd always said that it was because he had grown up directly underneath a roller coaster. Although that was actually a joke from the old movie. Anyway, he had grown up on the Upper West Side in New York in a very large apartment building where her grandparents still lived. Her mother, on the other hand, was from Southern California and had spent most of her childhood on the bench or playing sports with her three big brothers. Two of her brothers had even grown up to be coaches. Her older brother was a ski instructor, and they all thought it was funny and hilarious that the little sister had gone off and gotten an FD in history and spent most of her time sitting behind a desk all day. When her father returned with a shirt and two blankets, he was also carrying a pillow over mitts. Are your hands cold? Emily asked belligerently, her father flushing slightly in case he snaps when we move him. Over mitts will probably be more protected than the ordinary pot holders, but just barely. Hockey gloves might have been better, her mother said. Oh, her father gave that son thought. That's true. Is that they didn't even own any hockey gloves. As far as Emily knew, they watched hockey sometimes, but none of them played. Her mother folded one of the blankets in half and spread it onto the rocks right next to the dog. Before her father could even put the over mitts on, the dog made a sound like a resounding sigh and painful dragging himself onto the blanket, even though his legs didn't seem to be working quite right. Then he collapsed, breathing harder than ever. Wow, Emily said, feeling very proud of him. He's very smart and brave too. Her parents each lifted one end of the blanket and slowly transferring the dog onto the sleigh. The other blanket was already pretty soaking from the rain, but her mother covered him with it. Anyway, to protect him a little during the journey over their house. The dog was gasping for breath, but other than that, he never moved or made a sound as her father pulled the sleigh across the wet grass. Emily held the back door open, and her father got in the sleigh onto the kitchen. In the bright light of the room, she saw the dog clearly for the first time. It was a white retriever of some kind, with big brown eyes and a black nose. It was so thin that all his ribs showed, and she gasped when she saw a long bloody gash running across his side. His left forearm was also covered with blood and hanging in an unnatural position. When she looked more closely, she felt completely sick to her stomach. There was a broken bone sticking right out of his leg. That will be the end of part number three. Tomorrow, part four. In this book called Dog Whistle the Rescue. I'll be reading chapter 7 and chapter 8 in this book. Until then, have a great time and God bless.